everybody, this is the Wikstrand. The movie of today may just be the first of its kind because the concept of a science fiction movie that takes place in the future where a extreme sport of some description is the thing that binds society together is nothing, unusual. But I don't know if there has been made a movie before 1975 that takes this concept and runs with it. If anybody knows that, please submit that in the comment, but because I'm really curious, because Rollerball is a movie that works on almost every level. I love the fact that this movie is an anti-violence movie about violence, because the violence in this movie is not made to entertain, it is merely here to disgust you. You feel every bone crunch, you feel every hit, every blunt trauma in this movie. You feel it. The violence is all in the editing. It is such a fantastically edited movie. And the blood is so sparingly used that when you have blood in the final match, you really see it. It is, blood in the water, blood in the snow types of, oh shit! It is a movie that makes you uncomfortable to watch. This movie is very close to absolute perfection. There are a couple of things that made me a little bit that prevents it from going even further up the scale, but I have this as one of my favorite mid-1970s movies, especially when it comes to science fiction. Let's find out how good this movie is, shall we? This is Rollerball! To my DVD cover, this movie takes place in the year 2018, but according to director Norman Jewison, this movie actually takes place, anywhere in the future. It isn't set in a specific time, which is one of this movie's strengths, because they have deliberately, or maybe because the budget, was restrained, they don't show anything that happens outside of the rollerballs arenas and outside of, the house and stuff like that. You don't see, any flying cars or any spaceships or something that would date this movie with its design. Another thing that is really clever with this movie is the fact that it feels completely timeless. You never really feel that you are in the 70s. Sure, there is a little bit more presence of mustaches and some of the haircuts does feel a little bit 70s, but in the grand scheme of things, you really don't feel that you are in the 1970s. And the story is, of course, that in the future, countries have been replaced by huge corporations. And there are no more wars, and there are no more crimes, apparently. And the only thing that really, unites everybody is the fact that they have the game, Rollerball. A combination of roller skating and tactics from American football and hockey. It's kind of brutal, but nothing too serious. Rollerball is a very simple game. So simple, in fact, that the cast of this movie actually, in between takes, were playing rollerball together. That is how simple and basic it is. And because it is so simple and basic, it is not supposed to, show individualism. But there is one man that actually is a huge star. Jonathan E., played by James Caan. He, represents the everyman and people look up to him. This goes against the fabric of the game because it is not supposed to, show individualism. It's supposed to show a team spirit and stuff like that. So the powers that be and the owners of the Houston team in which Jonathan E. Plays in decides that they want him gone from the team. This is just before, the big championship and stuff like that. And, they're offering him, money and, a good pension and stuff like that. But the thing is that he doesn't want to quit the game. He doesn't want to leave his team high and dry. One thing I always felt when I watched this movie is, why couldn't you say that after, the championship, then you will retire? And because he's getting a little bit older and he's a veteran now, and they could have spinned it like that. Why were they so insistent that he would quit before they go to Tokyo and take on the Japanese team. I never understood that, but nevertheless. And as you probably have figured out by now, Jonathan E doesn't want to quit the game. So they decide to change the rules of the game, adding more and more brutality to the whole thing to, force him out. So we shall see where this one is going. Is he going to quit? Is he going to take down the corporations? Is he going to die? Is he going to be sacrificed for the greater good of the sport? We shall see. I love the rollerball sequences. They are so intense, they're so fantastically shot and edited. And as I said in my intro, you feel the force in this thing, you feel the blow, you feel the violence in this thing. It is uncomfortable to watch and fucking great. And all the 3 matches that we have in this movie feels different. And also because they are gradually elevating the violence and scaling down on the stipulations and the rules. And slowly, in front of our eyes, this brutal sport turns into a complete murder show. So that thing was fantastic. James Conrad's great in this movie, and he has a great supporting cast around him. I love Moon Pie. I love all his team, and it feels like they are an actual team that you could root for. And I love to hate the assholes who sits on the corporation and decides over life and death and stuff like that. And Maud Adams is also very good as his ex-girlfriend who the corporation took away from him for reasons. Also, we have to talk about the final match before I go into what I did not like about this movie, because the final match is so fucking amazing. You're on the edge of your seat the entire time, goosebumps all around you, and then you have one of my favorite endings of all time. It is an all-time absolute classic. It is exactly how you would end a movie like this. The freeze frame, Shostakovich music, and that haunting last image. It is so magnificent. The sets are fantastic. I love the fact that this is shot in Munich shortly after the Olympics. So they already had a track they could use, for the cyclists that were going on there. And I love the use of classical music in this one. The opening sequence is so fucking great, where they slowly, introduces the people and introduces the track and all of that stuff. That was fucking amazing. The problems that this movie has is basically the problem of pacing mostly. Because there are so many sequences in this movie outside of the 3 fantastic rollerball sequences that are not that great and has a tendency of going on far too long and doesn't provide you with any new stories or new information. The party goes on for way too long. The sequence when he goes to Geneva and want to talk about the past and the structure of the corporation with Zero, the computer who loses things, and the situation with Moon Pie after the battle in Japan, and sequences like this. And also of course the sequence where Maud Adams comes to his very, very cool cozy cottage to beg him not to do the final match. Those sequences could have easily been trimmed down severely, or in some cases, it could have been straight up being cut. But that doesn't stop this movie from being a complete classic. If you've never seen Rollerball, I must advise you to see it. It's a fantastic movie. But you have to have some patience with it, because there are sequences that just goes on and on and on. And you're thinking, where is this going? And you don't understand. I really recommend you to see this movie. Parts of it is absolutely astonishing. And if you just have a little patience, you will be okay with the sequences that is a little bit too slow and where really nothing happens. And the less is said about the horrible remake that came out in 2002, the better. It is not as horrible as people say it is, but it is a very bad movie. In the end, the director of Jesus Christ Superstar will convince you that the fate of the world rests in a leather-studded glove carrying a huge metal ball, and that is fucking great. Some pacing issues and some blatant plot holes prevents this movie from escalating into the absolute stratosphere, but the atmosphere of this movie is so fucking great, and the rollerball sequences are so impressive. The editing is absolute masterclass, and I like the acting, I like the characters, and the finish is just so amazing. I give Rollerball 79 points. Every time I see it, I just wish it was a little bit better than it was. But this movie has just a feeling to it that prevents it from feeling old and dusty. The pacing does hold it back, but it is still an absolute classic that you should absolutely go and watch right now. So I'll see you next time for Well So and So reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.